everyone for being here. And thank you for the invitation, Sheriff Mack. This is quite an honor. And as you're going to find out, I am not a professional speaker by any means. So like I said, my name's Jared Bosley. I'm a fourth generation farmer, currently raising the fifth. I have a son and a daughter at home, and they're taking care of chores now so I can be out here doing it before and after school. And we've had rain, so now they're dealing with the mud and a few cows calving yet, but they got it. They said go out here and do the thing. So the last few years, life's kind of changed big time in South Dakota, for not just me, but for a lot of us. We got a CO2 pipeline coming in and trying to go across all our land. And you hear CO2 pipeline, most people don't really know what that is. Hell, we didn't know what it was really when you come. You hear CO2, all right, that can't be that bad. That's the element of life. Well, they're going to compress it down out of the ethanol plants and put it in a pipe, run it up to North Dakota, and just sequester it. Waste it. Waste CO2. Our plants, I'm a farmer. We need CO2 to grow our lifestyle and everything. We rely on that. But we got this evil company coming in, and they see the big tax credits they can get to more or less just take our land, control that, and control us and predict our future. How come they get to come in and predict our future? My grandma on my farm had a tractor roll into her and shatter her pelvis against the barn wall. She went to the doctor and they told her, Dorothy, you'll probably never walk again. She looks right at him and says, walking is not I have to walk. That's not an option. I have 6 little kids. She walked within a year. If she can go through that, well, then I can damn sure fight this battle. So it's kind of how this thing got started. They've had meetings about this. Our PUC, our Public Utility Commission in South Dakota, told us to go to the counties and work with them for ordinances and stuff like that, and we did. We did what they told us to do. We got involved. We've had big counties, actually, a bunch of us, we got ordinances in. And there's no guidelines out for this CO2 stuff yet. They're coming with those in November. That's why they're trying to ramrod this right down our throat as fast as they can. These are so much more dangerous and unnecessary and not going to change anything. The people behind this don't care about anything other than money and power is what they're after. So we said no. This isn't going to happen. You don't get to come in and go through the middle of our stuff right next to our farms. How come they get to control my future? Because if they come through and that easement goes on, now I have to get permission from them to build or plant a tree or do anything within 1,000 feet of this. They're coming right north of where my cows are. Kids want to come back. We got future plans of some hoop barns and things, and now they get to come control that. No, not going to happen. Not on my watch, and I will go down with everything to keep them off of this. So now it gets fun, because now they know we're saying no, and all us neighbors, we held the line. I said, we stay this together. They can't break this. And so they came out then. The judge ordered they got permission from the judge to come do this survey. They don't even have a permit to come onto our land and survey. And they come out there the one day. I was 10 miles away planting some alfalfa. And the only reason I knew they were there is because my wife's gallbladder decided to go out a few days prior to this, and she had to get that out and was getting calibrated back at home. I'm planting, she calls me, she goes, Jared, I'm in the shower and someone was in the house, yelled, hello, hello. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, who's in the house? Like, if it's someone's dropping parts or something, they'll put them in the shop, something like that, or neighbor needs a wrench, something, that's no big deal. South Dakota, we don't have to lock our doors. We all get along with the neighbors. We live in a great, great place. Got great neighbors. Well, they went in there, so she calls, wondering. I said, well, go down and, see what's going on. It's a random pickup from Louisiana. She then turns the cow cameras, they pull over to the shop and go right into my shop. Well, then they proceed from there and go up to the field to survey, and she called me. I said, well, go up there, and when you get up there to talk to them, you call me. So she does that. She calls me, and I could hear him say there's Summit there to survey. I said, if it's Summit they're there to survey, the sheriff should be involved. And I said, we'll have to deal with this later. I got to go. I can't do nothing. I'm 10 miles from home, and I'm coming down to a mud hole. I got to watch what I'm doing. And then she kind of said, oh, it looks like they're leaving, whatever. Day goes on, I plant in the field, and I was doing another interview for a paper, and I had to get home to get some pictures. I said, I'm calling you on the way home. My tractor comes down the road pretty fast, about 12.7 miles an hour. It takes a little while to get home. I needed pictures of my new tree grove that they were going to go across with all this. And when I get home, well, I did make it home in time. She goes, well, the detective just left here. I said, the detective? Now what could have I did? Well, they left the farm that day and went up and turned a deal in and said that I threatened to kill him. So now this goes all over the news. They filed affidavits. Now I get to go to court for contempt of court, and I haven't done a damn thing. So we get all the evidence to go to court. Our phone records, I got videos of them going in the shop, which we're going to show you some of this in a bit. I just want to run through my story first, then I'll talk about the pictures. But I get to go do that, and we go to court, and the judge, it was the most odd, screwed up court thing I've ever seen. So we get in there, and he goes, well, I'm not going to find Mr. Bosley in contempt, but there's no reason to go through any of this evidence and make this a circus. And we're like, no, let's go through the evidence. We got phone records. I was on the phone with Tara for 6 seconds. These guys filed false affidavits, wrote all kinds of stuff in there, like we just had this big, long conversation, like I had a posse of people at the farm because there was 8 pickups around there, and they just made up all this stuff. So that gets blasted all over the news, all over the radio stations. Well, that's really neat when you're a farmer and you got elderly couples and they hear, oh, Jared Bosley threatened to kill these people. I didn't do anything. So I got to explain to everybody that I'm innocent, and they don't want to listen to the facts. And we're like, and the judge goes, no, we're not going to do it. He goes, if Jared Bosley wants to clear his name, this isn't the place. He can do it on social media. That's right out of the judge's mouth in front of, 50, 60 of us, because they had a bunch of people there supporting me. And it was just, I've never seen people get so mad and just disbelief. Those guys are supposed to find the truth out, and they didn't. So that goes on, and we got some stuff blasted out on social media because we have the facts, we have the evidence. Well, 3 weeks later goes by, here comes the survey crew again. A little different setup this time from what they said I allegedly kept them from doing the first time. They brought a drill rig, a drill rig. We had the deputy sheriffs out there, which I wanted the sheriffs out there so they couldn't make up stuff about me again, because I now have a judge's order to stay 300 feet away from these guys on my own farm. Well, when they showed up, we're hauling beans, and it was chaos. They had like 8 or 9 pickups, and they blocked every road coming into my place. They had people sitting all over with spotting scopes watching us. They now had armed guards with them and just went right through. In fact, they come through my farm, they opened 4 sets of gates, drove this drill rig across the new trees, the fabric, went right across the crop, come back around and did all this again. And I'm just held hostage more or less. Have the deputies come over and say, well, you can't go out there, you can't do any of this stuff. Well, I had friends come. Mike came, Holly and Mark. Ed was there, Craig. These guys came down because they knew I couldn't be within 300 feet of them, or they were going to try to make an example out of me again like they've been trying. So we got the video of the stuff, and this little survey thing they said was going to take an hour was about 7 hours worth on the farm that day. And you're just, in my mind, you're going, how is this even happening in America? Like how, little South Dakota, we just want to be left alone. Let us do what we do, live off the land, and give our children a chance to make it. And they're trying to take that from a lot of people, and it's not just South Dakota, it's North Dakota, it's Iowa, Nebraska, a little Minnesota. So we kind of been getting on the map with this, and like, oh, your governor's great. She's just great, she says it all the time. She ran on private property rights. Well, she kept that on her webpage right up until the incident with the drilling rigs. And then she decided, I guess she'll just change that. She didn't really mean that. And she has been zero help to us. And I think we'll go through a little slideshow now and show you this stuff. There's one little video. I'm not going to talk much on. I just want you to
media is talking about
watch that.
One of the biggest What I'm about to tell you should be the biggest story in America right now, but literally nobody in the mainstream media is talking about it. One of the biggest invasions of private property rights in American history is currently happening in South Dakota. And elected Republicans, led by a certain governor, are doing absolutely nothing to stop it. So here's what's happening. What you're seeing in this video is surveillance from a farmer in Brown County, South Dakota named Jared Bosley. The people you see in this video are surveyors from a company called Summit Carbon Solutions. Without permission or a notice that they were even coming, these guys walked into Jared Bosley's home and into his workshop without permission and began surveying his land. And that is because Jared Bosley is one of over 80 South Dakota landowners and farmers that are facing eminent domain lawsuits from this company. In case you didn't pay attention in high school history class, eminent domain is the process by which the government takes private property from civilians for public use. Fifth Amendment to our Constitution states, quote, "Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation." The eminent domain process was upheld by the Supreme Court as constitutional in a case you may have heard of called Kelo v. New London. Instead of it coming from the government, these landowners in South Dakota are facing eminent domain lawsuits from a private company in order to build a carbon capture pipeline that will traverse 5 states. What they want to do is take liquid carbon from ethanol plants in Iowa, which is the biggest industry in the state with tons of political power, and run it through this pipeline and store it under the ground in North Dakota. That's literally it. They want to take carbon and store it in the ground. It provides absolutely no economic value except to lower the carbon emissions of these ethanol plants. And these surveyors are showing up to the private property of landowners in South Dakota like Jared Bosley without their permission. They're also showing up with armed security guards. Here's a picture of one of them here. And they're even showing up with massive drill rigs that they are hauling into the middle of the fields at these farms, ruining the crops in the process. And keep in mind, they don't even have the permit to build the pipeline yet, nor have the eminent domain lawsuits even been adjudicated. And in the case of Jared Bosley, pictured here with his haircut that goes absolutely hard, these surveyors from Summit Carbon Solutions falsely accused him of threatening them. According to Jared Bosley, after they showed up to his property unannounced, his wife went up and asked them who they were, at which point they said surveyors, and she put him on speakerphone, and he says he had a 6-second conversation with them and didn't threaten anything. Yet these guys hauled him to court, which is where he is in this picture, and tried to get a restraining order against him, which would have prevented him from being on his own property when they come back. But luckily, the judge ruled in Bosley's favor. His farm has been in his family for 4 generations, where they plant corn and alfalfa, and they also raise cattle. He also plants a lot of trees on his farm to serve as a windbreak for the cattle, which seems like would be doing more for the environment than carbon capture. And he said that if they build the pipeline there, it will all but destroy his farm. He said they'll have to bulldoze many of the trees that he's planted in order to build it. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, hey, South Dakota is a ruby red state. They have a pretty famous governor who fancies herself a presidential candidate one day. Surely they're doing everything in their power in order to protect the private property rights of their constituents, right? But you would be wrong. Kristi Noem and elected Republicans in South Dakota are doing absolutely nothing. And the reason is because Summit Carbon Solutions has massive ties to big GOP donors and bigwigs. Their senior advisor is former Iowa Governor Terry Branstad, who also served as Donald Trump's ambassador to China. He was the longest-serving governor in American history and still remains incredibly politically powerful in Iowa. If you want to be a presidential candidate and win Iowa, you need the support of Terry Branstad, which explains why Kristi Noem is doing nothing. The guy who handles all of their comms is Dan Lederman, the former chairman of the South Dakota Republican Party. And they were also a platinum sponsor of Governor Kristi Noem's second inauguration back in January. In a recent interview, Jared Bosley said that when he confronted Kristi Noem about what is happening to him, her response was, quote, "It's out of my hands. Am I supposed to fight all of your battles?" The answer to that question is yes. As the elected governor of South Dakota, it is your job to protect the private property rights of your constituents. In the last session of the legislature, there were multiple bills presented that would have protected the private property rights of South Dakotans, yet they all failed with a majority of Republicans voting against them. What's happening to Jared Bosley and these other South Dakota landowners is a tragedy. Their farms have been in their family for many generations. Some of them go back all the way to the 1800s. And now they're facing losing them for the green energy scam. And Republicans are doing absolutely nothing about it. Have you heard anything about this in the mainstream media? No, you haven't. Remember a couple years ago when the story of the protests at the Dakota Access Pipeline was one of the biggest in the world? Despite the fact that the pipeline did not travel through tribal lands and they did not use eminent domain to build it, the media covered this from top to bottom. But you've heard absolutely nothing about South Dakota landowners like Jared Bosley, who are facing actual private property loss for something that has no economic.
All right, now here's some of the drill rigs when Mike was out there. As I was sequestered to the farm, they were out there filming this. That's what they took up in the fields, across the tree fabric, right through everything. And it was a lovely day that day. It was about 103 degrees, blowing about 35. But they wrecked stuff and didn't care. And in fact, when the drill rig, the slurry they dug up, they asked what I wanted to do with it. I said, you put it in a barrel and take it with you. We don't know what's in that stuff. So they drilled down 90 feet deep for a pipe that they're going to put in 4 feet. We asked them why. They said, well, they're going to bore under the slough, which, okay, maybe that made sense. But the same slough was a mile to the east, mile to the west, no drilling going on there. I was completely targeted. I feel they wanted blood somehow. They were trying to make an example of me so the neighbors and everybody would start to give in. And that's just not that isn't going to happen. We told them that day at the planning and zoning meeting, because they're always threatening to sue us, always going to sue us. We said, Trevor, well then get ready to damn sue, because we're not going anywhere. So you would think Governor Christie should do something. She ran on these private property rights, and I ran into her and looked her right in the eye and asked her that question. And then she said that, well, it's out of my hands, in the PUC hands. Okay, fine. She goes, I can't do nothing. I said, well, you're the most powerful elected official in this state. I have a hard time believing that. And then she looks at me, am I supposed to fight all your battles? I said, you don't got to worry about me, but there's maybe some people you could help stand up for. And she's done nothing, just rides the fence, does all this thing. So everything's tied together. She's invested with these guys in an ethanol plant. Boom. If you could see it, you always start following the money. And no matter what goes on, you follow the money. Doug Burgum, governor of North Dakota. Those people don't want it up there, but he says it's going to come through. Who else is Doug Burgum good buddies with? Bill Gates. Well, now we got Bill Gates, Doug Burgum, Kristi Noem, Bruce Rostetter's behind this. Bruce Rostetter's been a snake his whole damn life. He's only stolen from the people. He does not care about anybody but himself. He lives in Iowa in a gated community because he couldn't go out anywhere. He'd never make it home, I'm sure of that. And these people, we have to start standing up to all this, because this is the tip of the spear. And we're not anti-pipeline, we're pro-property rights in this whole thing. Why does this private company, not going to benefit the public anything, get to use eminent domain? We told the sheriffs, it's unconstitutional. Quit bringing us these papers. I mean, they showed up to the farm once a week and bring another stack of papers about that high. But I just hope, now that I have your guys' ear, we need to let President Trump know about this, because President Trump has got Doug Burgum, Kristi Noem, Bruce Rostetter right in his ear. They are not the people that he needs to be tied with. He's not our knight in shining armor if those people are going to get in there. I'm sure of that, and we have to let him know. And it's every state. I've been to Iowa with Steve King here and talked. The people do not want this, and we keep getting called radical, crazy, environmentalists. We've never done anything radical. And are we the environmentalists? You guys are pushing the Green New Deal on us. So who's really trying to be the environmentalists here? Our whole goal is to just be left alone and let us be and give the next generation a chance and get back to the Constitution on everything, and everything will sort itself out. So I want to thank you guys for the time and your ear. And if you got any questions, I'll be around. We have all the forms and the bills that Kristi Noem put out for COVID stuff, how she claims she kept the state open. She did not. The House kept the state open. She has bills there to close it for COVID, and she's just riding the coattails of stuff. We have to expose these people for who they are. And like I said, I appreciate everybody for coming, and let's enjoy the day. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Right on time?
Yes, sir.